Good afternoon, everybody, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. Thank you so much for joining us for our 14th Ask Me Anything live video series. If you missed the 13th Ask Me Anything on what does immigration reform look like, you can still see it on HIAS-PA's YouTube page, on our website at www.hiaspa.org, and in the video section of HIAS-PA's Facebook page. My name is Catherine Miller Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of HIAS Pennsylvania, a nonprofit whose mission is to provide immigration, legal, and social services to immigrants and refugees. Today, our conversation will focus on the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Program. In December of 2019, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Program was approved as part of the National Defense Allocation Act, providing certain Liberians with an opportunity to apply for a green card and putting them on an expedited path to citizenship. The original program would have expired on December 20th, 2020, but it has been extended for 1 year, so applications that are received by December 20th of 2021 will still be accepted. Today, we're excited to be speaking with HIAS Pennsylvania's own Pam Roberts. Pam is a Citizenship and Family Unification staff attorney at HIAS Pennsylvania. She's advocated for the LRIF program extension and has been working with clients to apply for green cards and work authorization through the program. Thank you to everyone who has submitted questions already. We're excited for our conversation today. If you haven't already done so, please submit any questions you have during the next half hour in the comments section below. If we don't get to them during this live conversation, we'll answer them in the comments. Please keep your questions general. If you have specific legal questions or need legal representation, please contact HIAS-PA directly. We cannot give legal advice on Facebook Live. We would also love to hear your ideas on topics for future videos. We hope that through this video series, you can ask any questions you have and learn the truth about immigration and refugee resettlement in the United States. So welcome, Pam. I'll start with questions from me. What is the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Program?
Kathy, thanks for having me, giving me this opportunity to explain the program. So first, Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Program is a mouthful, is what it is. So we'll call it LRIF to make things go a little smoother. And as you explained already, it's a program that was established by Congress to offer Liberian nationals who've been living in the United States for many years an opportunity to get their green cards, their work authorization, and for many also an opportunity to become United States citizens.
That's wonderful. So who's eligible to apply and what's the process like?
I'll answer generally, and I'll put a caveat out right away that there are very detailed specifics that we won't get into, but I'll explain how you cover those when I get to the process. So in general, the people who are eligible are Liberian nationals, meaning that you are a citizen of Liberia, you have had at some point in your life a Liberian passport, and that you've been living in the United States continuously since November 20th of 2014. So essentially 5 years when the program was initially implemented, but now we're at 6 years and a couple of months. You also have to, in order to be eligible, you must meet the usual rules about how to obtain a green card, which is also known as becoming a lawful permanent resident, or an LPR. Usually we call that getting your green card. It means you have lawful status to stay and live in the United States for 10 years at a time, generally. In addition to the Liberian national, that Liberian national's spouse and unmarried children of any age. So the immigration law defines children as unmarried people under the age of 21. So they also say, and unmarried sons and daughters. So any age, as long as you're the offspring of the Liberian national who is eligible, may apply under this program. Those people, the spouse and children, must also meet all of the usual admissibility rules, but they do not have to be Liberian nationals themselves, and they do not need to meet that continuous presence since November 20th of 2014 rule. So they may have arrived more recently and still be eligible as long as they're the unmarried child of an eligible Liberian national. And that's not the complicated part yet. The inadmissibility rules, the admissibility/inadmissibility rules are a long set of rules in the law, the Immigration and Nationality Act, that say these are the people that may not ever become lawful permanent residents, et cetera. They lay out the rules and how one addresses those issues. We're not going to get into the details there, but I can tell you that the LRIF program has some modifications to those. So that's part of what you would discuss when you're involved in the process, early on in the process, when you first meet with an attorney or an accredited representative to help you kick off the process. So I'll talk about that now. That was the other part of your question. What is the process?
Right.
So step one is consult with an immigration attorney or an accredited representative. And an accredited representative is someone who's been trained in immigration law and is accredited by the Department of Justice to help people with immigration law matters and apply for benefits. Once you get connected with someone like that, share your story and be honest. Tell them your immigration history. If there are things you don't remember, tell them. Tell them what you do remember. Tell them where your memory is fuzzy. Part of the challenge is that many of these people have lived here for decades, literally, came in the 1990s, early 2000s. So they don't remember everything, and that's okay, but it's important to be honest about what you do remember, what you don't remember, and that way the attorney or accredited representative can help you decide whether you're truly eligible. The two of you together, you and your legal counsel, may decide that you need to get more information, that you need to get a copy of your immigration file. Perhaps you applied 20 years ago for asylum and you don't remember all of the conversation, or maybe you don't remember everything that happened to you in Liberia before you came here. So those are the things where you get into the details and help decide whether or not you actually qualify for the program. And you gather the documents that you'll need. Your counsel will tell you what you need to do. You have to be able to prove continuous presence since November 20th of 2014. And continuous doesn't mean continuous. There may be some short absences, so that will be allowed. So don't make any assumptions about your eligibility or ineligibility without talking to a lawyer. You'll also have to have some passport photos taken, and you may need to save some money. There is a fee to apply for a green card in the United States, and the fee right now is $1,225 to apply, which includes getting your biometrics and your fingerprints taken. And there is no additional fee charged to get your work authorization, which you may apply for at the same time. So as long as you apply at the same time, there's no additional fee. So those are the things that you need to do. Then after all the documents are collected, you've got your passport photos taken, you've collected your fee and purchased your money orders or written a check. You will complete with your attorney or your accredited representative. You'll complete the application and file that whole application package with all of your supporting documentation. And then probably some months later, you'll hear back from USCIS. Patience is important in any process when you're working with an immigration benefit. When you're advised by USCIS, you'll go to your biometrics appointment. You'll have your fingerprints taken. You may be asked to go to attend an interview. It's not mandatory as part of the application, but it is up to USCIS to decide when they review your application. So it is more likely than not that you will get a request to come to an interview. And
I'm sorry, Pam, can I interrupt you for 1 second? USCIS stands for what?
Thank you. Sorry. United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So that is the agency, the part of the Department of Homeland Security that is responsible for processing your application. Thank you, Kathy. It is an alphabet soup and we forget. So that is, and then you wait for a decision. So that's the general process. There is a lot of waiting time in between. And I think I skipped over when I mentioned gathering your documents. That often includes that you may need, when I mentioned your immigration file, often that includes sending off a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request that can take several months to get the information back. And will give you and your lawyer a refresher of your memory of everything that every entry you may have made to the United States, any previous applications, and help you ensure that you're addressing and remembering all of the information that has previously been discussed.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam. And yes, I can appreciate that it's really complicated. So I think listening to you is so helpful. And just to summarize for our listening audience, so essentially, if you're a Liberian national, call us. That's the short version.
That's right.
And in terms of the process, call us and meet with either an immigration attorney or a Department of Justice accredited representative who will go over the details of your story, help you figure out what documents you may need to collect, help you decide whether filing this petition is right for you, then help you file the petition, and then you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then hopefully you have a happy ending. And so that's
Correct.
the short version of what I've heard, right?
Correct. And it's very likely that you and your attorney will attend an interview at some point after your application has been reviewed. Yes.
Right. And the interview is with the federal agency that processes these applications. I guess one more thing I just want to clarify for our listening audience. Pam mentioned a filing fee of $1,200. I guess it was $1,225 to be precise.
Yes.
Just to be very clear, that fee goes to the government for processing the paperwork. Highest Pennsylvania does not charge a fee for providing the legal services. So just so you understand, and we provide legal services to low-income folks who might be eligible.
Thank you. And I'll just add to that that you may be eligible, people who are low income may be eligible for a fee waiver, so they wouldn't have to pay the USCIS fee. But that will require additional documentation of their income, and we can help you figure that out, help listeners figure that out, and help them fill out the application, and we would file that application at the same time.
Oh, that's great. Very good to know. So I want to move on to the next question. What are some assumptions? As you stated, the original program was passed as part of a federal law in December of 2019. So it's been about a year, a little over a year, that you have been doing the work with this particular community regarding this particular benefit, immigration benefit. What are some assumptions that people were making or are making about the LRIF program that may have prevented them from applying in 2020 that you hope have been dispelled?
Thank you. There are a lot of assumptions, and there were also certainly just circumstances that made it very difficult. So with a program with such short duration, the program was approved by law, but then USCIS typically writes guidance, policy guidance. They give you additional detail for applicants and their legal practitioners to help them know exactly how to address the questions that come up. So the details. And unfortunately, USCIS did not release that guidance until April, 4 months into this very short 1 year period. And when they did release the guidance, it was in some ways more stringent, more cumbersome, more complex based on the way the law was written. So the name of the program is Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness. It was to be fair to people who have been living here, hardworking, contributing, paying their taxes, raising their families, etc. And it appeared that there were extra hurdles put into the process, that it became more complicated to the point that Out of the approximately 10,000 people who were eligible, halfway through the year, only 1,200 or so had applied, and by the end of September, only 2,400, and none had gotten decisions yet from USCIS. So it was broadly acknowledged that it was more complicated than it needed to be, that USCIS didn't have their program as smooth, their processing as smooth as would have been helpful, especially given the short duration. So there was a lot of advocacy around that. So there was a short time. Collecting documents can be overwhelming. People who've been here if you came here 20 years ago, people have moved, people have lost documents, people don't remember. And so finding their documents and then being able to get to their documents because COVID happened. And I had a client who was on lockdown. She was a home health aide. She was on lockdown with her patient for over 10 weeks. And her documents were several towns away. She couldn't get to her documents that were in storage. Others have simply lost boxes of old documents. So all of those things sort of exacerbated each other. There was a period of time when USCIS has been saying they wanted current Liberian passports. People came here 20 years ago and never left. They did not renew their passports. They had no intention of ever leaving. Now they're told they need a current passport, and the Liberian embassy closed. And the Liberian embassy was not renewing any passports by mail. They were requiring people to go and do a biometrics appointment in person at an embassy that was closed. So they're saying, no, you can't come now. It'll be a while. So all of those things sort of snowballed on top of each other. In addition, under the past administration, there was a bit of a chilling effect. One of the things that was very effective about the past administration was that it was clear that they were not very immigration friendly, and people were nervous about what that might mean if they applied, if they came even to an information session meeting. So people were apprehensive. So it is our hope that seeing a breath of fresh air, a different attitude coming from the Biden administration will encourage people who might have been on the fence to at least come in for a consultation and address that possibility that they might be eligible. And some people assume that if they'd applied for a green card in the past, maybe because they were then married to a U.S. citizen or an LPR, someone who already had their green card, that they're not eligible for this program. That's not necessarily true because, remember I said there are some modifications to the usual rules that are unique to the LRIF program. So those are worth exploring. There's also sometimes an assumption that one had to have either temporary protected status, TPS, or DED, deferred enforced departure, in order to now be qualified to apply for LRIF, and that is also not true. Many people have had TPS or DED, but it's not a requirement in order to apply through LRIF. So we're hopeful that we can put those things to rest and at least ask the questions, at least have that initial consultation.
That's really helpful, Pam. And, it raises another question in my mind. You mentioned that in addition to several other issues, one of the issues was the overcomplication of the legal process that presented a hurdle. Are we enjoying in this moment a LRIF 2.0 where they have unwound some of those complicated processes, or are they still complicated, but we remain hopeful that we'll be able to help our clients through it?
We're certainly seeing that there are very hopeful signs, including that on day one of the Biden administration, President Biden in his stack of 19 executive orders had one that extended DED for Liberian nationals. That means that people who had a temporary status, they were allowed, this is a complicated concept. They were supposed to be leaving, departing the country, but we were deferring enforcing that, hence deferred enforced departure. We were deferring enforcing that they had to leave in order to allow them time to apply for LRIF. So the DED had expired in March of 2020. It was extended to January of 2021 to get it past that first deadline, LRIF deadline of December of last year. And President Biden extended that deadline through June of 2022 to allow people to have this extra year to apply for LRIF. He also, in that executive order, directed the Secretary of Homeland Security to review the procedures that had been followed in the past year to ensure that things would go more smoothly going forward and be more consistent with the legislative intent. The intention of Congress was to make this an opportunity for Liberian nationals who have been here for many years and who wish to remain and who are contributing members of our society, and we wish to remain. So all of those things certainly are indicators that move in the right direction. We have not yet seen new guidance, revised guidance regarding the LRIF program, but it's our hope that things will change. And some of what we see in the guidance, some of what happens in the process is discretionary at the time of the interview or at the time things are being reviewed. And so if the person doing the decision making, the adjudicator, is feeling that the message that they're receiving is that to fulfill the legislative intent, that they may be looking at things with a more generous eye.
Great. That's so helpful. So another question that I have is actually kind of more fundamental. What difference does being able to apply for a green card make in the lives of the Liberians that you're helping?
I can probably best answer that by telling a couple of stories about some of my clients. So I can't imagine what it's been like, what it would be like to leave a country that's involved in civil war, or where because of the war, people have children that have died, right? Families that have been torn apart where they have no contact with each other. They don't know how to reach each other. People have experienced really severe traumas, loss of family, the loss of their original homeland, and now made a home here. And while they were here, they had children, they married, they created a life, they have faith communities, they have jobs that are important to them, they've gotten training in doing something that matters to them and to their community. And they've always had this, well, we'll give you TPS for another year or a DED for another 18 months. And this has always been hanging there. There's never been stability. So one client who has been here for 30 years, her uncle said to me from the day she signed her first piece of paper asking us to help her with her application, I talked to him 2 weeks later and he said she hasn't stopped smiling in 2 weeks. That the sense of relief for her that she was finally on a path that might allow her to know she would never have to leave what is her home was really important. A young high school graduate who hasn't been able to get a job without work authorization wants desperately to go to community college, transfer to a four-year college, and become an engineer. Another one who has started his own business and is an entrepreneur, has limited access to funds because of his status in order to launch his business, and wants to be part of the green revolution in this country and has a really good idea. So there's a woman who started a church. There's just an endless list of people, and it's about families staying together. It's about their community being stabilized. It's about the sense that every human being deserves to be at peace where you are, and to know that you have that confidence that that's where you'll be tomorrow, that you'll see your high school student graduate from high school in 2 years, even though you may have left children in Liberia 20 years ago that you didn't get to watch grow up because the war tore you apart. And to have that fear to be living with that constant fear and anxiety, I don't think we can comprehend. And I also don't think we can comprehend how much of a relief it will be to have that behind them and to actually get that card in their hand.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, we're getting close to our time. I want to ask you one last question.
Okay.
So and this is kind of a segue from what you just ended with. You talked about the relief for Liberians, and that Liberians in particular have been here living in our communities, raising their children, creating sanctuary spaces in the churches that they found, and businesses and other ways that they really have become a fabric of our community. And so it's important to really just recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
But so what does this program teach us about opportunities and challenges for other individuals, seeking a path to citizenship? Why is that important?
I will answer that, but I want to throw out one thing that I just put a star on my notes to make sure that I said this. One of the things that's really special about this program, and it will be a segue to answering your question too, Kathy, because I think it's an important piece that should exist in new programs, is one of the things that's really important here. Typically when someone gets a green card, they have to wait 5 years before they can apply for citizenship. Under this program, they get credit for the time that they've been able to prove they've been here. And since we know that's at least 6 years and 3 months ago, they will get credit for that amount of time. So when they receive their green card, assuming they meet other eligibility requirements for citizenship, they have at least met that 5 years, that 5-year requirement, and then can move on and actually become a citizen, which gives them another level of relief and stability. And so that's a piece that should be considered in new programs as well. I can tell you, so now to answer your question, the opportunities and challenges sort of go back to the issues that we ran into in the last year, right? So we need USCIS to update their guidance promptly. And if a new program is put in place and there's recommended legislation under the Biden administration right now looking at finding a path, creating a path to green cards and citizenship for up to 11 million undocumented residents in the United States. So get that guidance together, make it clean, make it efficient. Obviously, it's under the Department of Homeland Security. This is about doing things in the right way and making that path smooth. We need to do community outreach. We were very fortunate in the Philadelphia area that our local USCIS office was extremely supportive and participated in outreach programs, but that was very sporadic around the country. And so everyone should have that opportunity and reach out to people and give them the information that they need as quickly as possible. And the policy guidance should reflect the reality of applicants' experience. The fact that people have been here for decades is different than a person who just arrived 2 years ago and has all of their documents in a little plastic folder and everything's neat and clean, right? So be consistent with the intent of the legislation to treat law-abiding, hardworking immigrants fairly, give them an opportunity to stabilize their status in their community and their family. So keeping that objective in mind and writing the procedures to support that. As part of that, the immigration records that already exist from past applications, from entrances and exits, need to be available to the immigrants and their legal advocates quickly. FOIA requests take months and months to get back right now. USCIS with COVID has had people out. They haven't been fully staffed anyway. That needs to be revised. We need to get the records in order to include them in the application package. And be aware that when people have been here for years and years, they don't remember those details, especially if they experienced trauma. Take into consideration the realities of the history of the people who are applying, and write the procedures in a way that accommodates that, makes the records available so that can all be addressed. And there's one specific thing we've been asking for, two specific things. A current passport is irrelevant. As long as someone ever had a passport from their country of origin, that country recognizes them as a national, that should be the end. There's no reason to send people flying across the country to an embassy to get a new passport that they're never going to use. And secondly, when there's a special program, typically USCIS processes all of those at one service center so that there are a few people who are specially trained in that program and can work through the program, work through the applications consistently and make consistent decisions. With LRIF, that hasn't happened. They were dispersed all over the country, and that has resulted in inconsistent treatment of people with very, very similar circumstances. So those are things to be avoided in the future.
All right, that's great, Pam. That's all we have time for, but really, really wonderful. I'm so glad that you shared all of this information with us. For all of you who sent questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, they will be answered in the comments below. And one more critical note, HIAS Pennsylvania remains open during the pandemic. So to be clear, although we're working from home, we are open. We're continuing to provide remote legal services, including citizenship to immigrants in the greater Philadelphia area. Stay tuned for HIAS Pennsylvania's next Ask Me Anything in March. And as always, you can learn more about how to support DACA recipients, asylum seekers, people who are interested in LRIF, and other immigrants and refugees at www.hiaspa.org. Thank you so much.